Well, I really thought this last pineapple guava was toast. After all, look at this. This looks pretty bad. But check it out. There's some new growth right there, so it's coming back. This guy, survived the drought. Or I thought it died in the drought. Then we got flooding, and it seemed like it got too stressed. We bottom watered it. Maybe it stayed in the water too long. But now it's potentially bouncing back. Obviously, plans changed with using that front yard area where we created what we initially titled raised bed, wood chip age wood chip alternative bed number 2, and to just like raising it up and building a frame around it. We were going to put, I think, pineapple guavas there. We gave 2 of them away. We planted some more out where the other pineapple guavas were. We ended up getting 3 New Zealand cultivars that seem to be a lot more heat and sun resistant and drought resistant than the seedlings and stuff that we've had. So that leaves that one there, which we will probably just go plant out with all of our others instead of trying to make another bed, because you need pollination from at least 2 genetically different ones, and they don't always seem to easily get pollinated. But I think the biggest thing is you need to keep it well watered, well fed, and probably mulched if you want to maximize your productivity, or maybe a combination of mulch and compost. Wow, I see a persimmon there that looks ripe. Most likely it was damaged by a bird or a squirrel. They damaged it, and then it kind of forced itself to get ripe. But a lot of these guys are starting to turn a little bit orange in color. One of the most exciting things, though, check this out. This is that really expensive avocado that we've been waiting to show signs of life. Look at there. A lot of it died down here, but it's getting new growth. We're not getting as much blistering heat. We're getting some cooler nights here. We had some cool nights in like 65, 67 or so a while back, high of 92, 93 Fahrenheit, but I think the heat is not here for as long of a period of time, of course, and we don't have the drought since we're in the rainy season. So this guy is not only had that stuff in the shade here that was kind of, these weeds were protecting it, but now it's got all this new growth in the full sun here. Now here is the second one we planted, or the first one we planted, I should say, in raised bed 1, and you see it's still alive. Got some growth there, a lot of the weeds, a lot of the herbs, chaya, Mexican tithonia, everything kind of helping shade it out, including the sweet potatoes and whatever else we have here that helped kind of protect it over the summer. Even though the top, as you can see, got quite a bit of dieback, it hopefully will bounce back, and hopefully it'll get used to the full sun here in the year or 2 or whatever, however long it takes. But hopefully these guys will grow up, and do really well for us. Still tons and tons of flowers on this papaya here. No fruit. The papaya next to it, which is the same age, it might have got a little bit more winter damage, which is why it hasn't flowered yet. So I have no other papayas flowering, and you can see it was probably flowering at like 2 or 3 foot tall, and right now it's probably no more than 5 or 6 foot tall. At this time of year, with fall coming and potential for hard freezes, even if it produced fruit now, papayas, they probably would not ripen this late in the season, before they just froze. So we're going to take a look at our original pineapple guavas. Forgive all the weeds growing around here. As you can see, they're still holding on to some of this fruit. And what's different from this year from last year is that only one of these, which are both genetically different, they were planted in the same hole. Only one of these we got to taste the fruit from last year, and we have fruit on both of them this year. So this is going to be interesting. If this guy over here only has a few fruit, But I think that's the one that we got fruit off of last year. I'm not sure. Hopefully we can do a taste comparison to two genetically different pineapple guavas here. Of course, when we plant that pineapple guava that was still in the pot, we're going to have 7 different genetically different seedlings, and we're going to have 3 grafted, improved cultivars from New Zealand. So that'll be 10 genetically different pineapple guavas if they all make it and fruit. Still no sign of the pawpaws that we planted in this tire almost 2 years ago. But of course the other one is doing well. It's just small, and I hope that it keeps growing and does well for us. And maybe because it was crossed with stuff that grew here, that flowered here, that fruited here, that it's going to be easier to get fruits at pollination and flowering and stuff like that. I don't know how long it's going to take, because I've had seedlings that flowered at like 2 or 3 years old, and I've had the Tennessee seedling, which took about 15 or so years. So I don't know. It looks like beauty berries are ready to pick for jelly. Are we going to do it with the mosquitoes here eating us up? And this is the seedling that flowered at about 3 years old. Tallahassee or Panhandle seedling here. I wonder if it could have been a cross between the northern tropical Semina tribola or triloba with the pygmy, which is native even a little bit further south, and it looks very similar. So I wonder if that could affect, when they bloom. And I do know that people have crossed them intentionally. Would they cross in their natural range, naturally? And I guess I'll briefly talk about the xeriscaping area, a small little area where I was going to do a variety of things, kind of bordered on the citrus area and miscellaneous, where the pineapple guavas kind of border along. I got figs, I got a pear tree there, an olive, but the biggest thing was the cactuses, the variety of cultivars from like maybe Texas, Arizona, and stuff like that. And I guess in hindsight, I should have rooted them in the pot. Did like they were saying, lay the cacti down, have it produce a couple ears, bury the majority of those ears, have those 2+ ears root as well. So you got roots on the flat pad, and then roots coming out of the double, the rabbit ears or whatever you want to call them. And instead of just planting it in the ground afterwards, I should have just let them grow more pads and gave me more rooting material before ultimately planting them out in the yard, in the soil. I think when you have little pads like that low to the ground, too many animals and stuff knock them over, eat them, or whatever. Something can happen, and we've lost a nice chunk of what we had, and we may not have lost as much. In the best case scenario, they're still experimental. They're still like in a lower humidity place where they came from, so they could die either way from rain and rot and water, all that stuff. But they would have had a better chance of surviving. And if we would have gave them a start in pots, and if we got too much rain or whatever, we could move the pots somewhere where there's a roof over it and not stand in water on the ground. Not long ago, I talked about pawpaws and them kind of creating their own pawpaw forest or whatever. And I talked about having like 3 or so zones, if like, what if scenario, what if I died and nobody came out, bought the property, or bulldozed everything down and developed on it, and this wetlands area here, I guess you could call zone 2, has 3 or 4 genetically different pawpaws here, and some of them were grafted originally, but the graft or whatever didn't take. Then the the rootstock came out, but I do think we got 2 grafted ones here. So if we have 1, 2, 3, we have at least 5 genetically different plants then, you know, as long as those grafted ones survive in this one little area. And, you know, not even 100 foot away, and some maybe a little bit more than 100 foot away, we have another zone over there that starts at the corner of that fence that's probably 60 foot away from the first pawpaw here. This guy's a Tennessee seedling, and I grafted a Atwood on top. So this is seedling, the rootstock seedling, that's Atwood. We may change that piece over next season or something. This could be 2 or 3 grafts, plus, you know, these guys will create root suckers all over, even beyond my property there. This guy may look yellowed and tattered, but it is another Tennessee seedling, and I got 2 grafts on it. So this is 3 genetically different plants. There is one of the, I forget, one of the trademark varieties, so that's a grafted one on top and a seedling. So there's another 2 different genetically different plants. This guy's a root sucker. I tried to graft onto it last year. It didn't take. And this is possibly or probably from the the Tallahassee or Panhandle seedling. And there's 2 or 3 other root suckers here. So this is 1 so far. If we graft on 2 or 3 more, that'll be another 3 or 4 genetically different plants. So that's at least 13 different genetics or genetically different plants if everything survives within maybe, you know, 100, 120 foot from the furthest plant to the furthest plant in this area. You probably can't see it here. It's kind of bent over from all the vines, but I think that's a Pennsylvania golden. And then somewhere around here, there is a grafted one. This is close to the wettest area on our property where that avocado is there. And the other grafted one is another trademark variety. And although, you know, on the other end, the furthest one is the Tallahassee. This is some other seedling that was grafted. It died back. And yeah, probably 120 feet or so from the furthest one, but way closer, you know, probably 8 or so feet from the next one in 2 directions. So in this 120 foot span, we have, like I said, about 13 genetically different types, you know, plants. So if they create their own forest here, they're going to have the opportunity to be pollinated by genetically different trees. A lot of them. Over here where we planted that seed that miraculously came up, you know, after several attempts that was crossbred on our property. This guy's about 20 foot from a grafted one. This guy here, now this is another one of the trademarked ones. I think I've got 3 of them, or I guess 4 if you count the Atwood. But this guy hasn't done much for us, but it's grafted. That means there's 2 genetically different plants here. Even if the graft dies and somehow it starts sprouting up root suckers, we're going to have at least 2 genetically different plants within about 20 foot here. So that is about 16 genetically different plants. Now this guy right there is a Tennessee seedling. We originally planted 2 there, and the other one died, I think, unless we one day see a sucker come up or something from it. But it's probably 80 foot or more from another pawpaw. But we could potentially graft something onto it later on. It's been slow to grow. Then we're back at our oldest Tennessee seedling here, which suckers, you know, 1 or 2 suckers, I guess, every year or so. We had another one that we planted, I don't know if it was the same time or a year after. It lived for a while and then it died. But we did graft something to one of its suckers. So, and this guy has had pollination about 100 foot away, I guess, from probably the sunflower. and it also has to go over a house and back down. So it doesn't have a big level of pollination going on with it, but it has managed throughout the years to have the occasional fruit. So 18 genetics so far. Lastly, we're not going to go to the front because it is so overgrown right now, and I don't want to get my shoes soaking wet from the condensation dew and stuff on the grass. But we have 3 grafted ones. They've already started to sucker. That's another 6, right? That's 24 genetically different pawpaws we have. So at least one of those guys is not really in a super close proximity with something that can pollinate it. Really 2 of them, until the grafted one on that biggest Tennessee pawpaw's root sucker starts flowering. But I've got enough experience with this to know that they can get some level of pollination from being 60, 80, or 100 foot away. So every single one of those will have the ability to be pollinated as is. That doesn't mean, like I said, that one lone pawpaw I have, I need to graft onto it. So when it does come to flower, we'll have something else that could potentially flower and hopefully pollinate it. People might say, well, why don't you just graft something you have that's already flowering onto your other ones? You know, even if there's like something 1,000 foot away, just, you know, your sunflower or whatever. I guess there are several reasons, and maybe these aren't even valid, but the sunflower is the only grafted one I have that flowers amazingly pretty much every year, followed by NC1, which kind of moderately has a few flowers, and the mango is the worst one. All the other grafted ones have not produced flowers yet, and it may just take, you know, a while. You know, it took a really long time for my largest Tennessee seedling to flower, versus, like I said, the Florida Panhandle seedling was flowering at about 3 years. So genetics probably play a big factor in which ones flower the youngest and which ones take forever. But I guess I've been wanting just to have as much genetic variation as possible to see what flowers, see what kind of fruit quality we could get. But like I said, that could be an invalid thing. You know, it might be best just to go get several clippings from that sunflower and put it wherever something else is flowering. You know, with the Florida Panhandle seedling, with the largest Tennessee seedling, just put them in that area. Just, you know, clip a branch, you know, graft it onto it, and see what happens.